Hello, this is Scott McDonald, and welcome to Dr. Demographics. Where to put a Hello, this is Scott McDonald, and welcome to Dr. Demographics podcast on the perfect place to put a practice. We're going to be talking about a subject today that has been much in the news, although I don't know if you know it has been in the news as much as it has been. And it has to do with foreign immigration. Now, almost every day, we're seeing stories in the popular media that talk about foreign immigration to the United States. And there's some very good reasons why it is kind of a hot button issue. Now, healthcare practices often forget that they're kind of at the cutting edge of a lot of major trends that are happening in the world and in the United States. Immigration is important because at this time, with so much inflation and what looks like a looming economic downturn, doctors have got to find new patients who are going to be motivated, have need, and are willing to pay their bills. And frankly, foreign immigrants are people who really have a significant amount of need and have an ethic that they will often want to pay their bills. They also have the means of doing that through government programs, through savings, and through cash reserves that you may not know about. So they make a good population to serve. I want to talk about foreign immigration today. Now, as I mentioned, foreign immigration is a rather hot topic, but I don't think it's well understood. And I want to share with you my perspective on how this is going to affect your practice. You see, not only is it going to help you figure out where to practice, but it can also be a real boost to the cash flow, the production and collections in your practice. It will really help you to develop a brand new patient base. Foreign immigration may explode. And when I say explode, I mean it may dramatically increase in the very near future. Now, what are the implications for healthcare practices if, in fact, this does happen? And by all indications, it will happen even in the coming few months. And it will happen in almost every part of the United States. Well, let's talk a little bit about why. So immigration of America, I mean, people coming to America from other places, it doesn't necessarily have to be very far away. Remember, domestic immigration, people moving from one state or county or city to another, is going on, and we often track the desirability of the population based upon their demographics as foreign nationals. Now, let's get a few facts clear. The world economy is in bad shape. I dare you to name any country right now and say, are they having a hard time? Are they going to have a hard time? Is this peace and tranquility that has happened? Well, you'll notice that Europe and Asia are on edge. So is much of North America. And I'm including Canada and Mexico, as well as Central America in that. Australia is not looking so hot either. So with that in mind, there's a lot happening that you need to know about. War is a reality. And while America is not immune from the problems of warfare, it certainly is right now one of the places where its citizens are not in danger immediately. And that's causing a lot of people to think, can I get to America? Can I bring my assets to America? Can I set up a business or a job there? So foreign investment and migration is a reality. Political strife right now is everywhere, in places that we never thought it would happen. And as I mentioned, Canada is one of the hotbeds in which that's going on. A lot of people thought, oh, Europe is at peace. Europe is always going to be at peace. We are not going to have a problem like in World War II. Really? And you know perfectly well, there's all kinds of things happening in Ukraine and on the border of Poland, which is a very large and dynamic country. There's much going on in Russia, the Crimea, as well as in France, who's going through an election right now. So Britain, Canada, France, and Scandinavia are going through the throes of tremendous political turmoil, and a lot of people thought it would never happen. Now, there are a couple of facts that I want you to keep in mind. Cultural, and I'm defining by that including religious tolerance, is right now extremely rare in the world. It looks like the Middle East may surprise everybody as Iran gets the bomb. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and other Middle Eastern countries, which appear to be at peace and in harmony right now, may not be for too much longer. Here are a couple of facts that demographers are aware of, and that is this. Primarily, people are on the move. People are moving from one place to another in very quick order. And this is going on in Asia as well. Now, I was talking to an Asian demographer, and he said, look, keep my money and keep my children in North America if you can. So they're sending their children to North America, specifically the United States, so that they can get educated, where they can buy property, physical property, houses, that is primarily foreign investors who are making these big moves in North America, and nobody seems to be talking about much here. That's because land values all over the globe are at risk. You can't move houses and properties, can you? Well, everybody knows that, and North America is a natural destination for investment. Now, a lot of people have talked about the yuan, the Chinese currency, as being a safe place to put your money. And if it was based upon some kind of gold standard, I think that'd be good. But it's based on real estate. And that right now, you can't move. So a lot of people in Asia are considering North America as a place to park their money and their kids. Now, in effect, immigration is going to dramatically affect healthcare practices. You already know that it's not hard to get a loan to start a practice. It's hard to make a reasonable loan right now. Interest rates are not favorable and are projected to go up. Inflation is not your friend, as you well know. But immigration is putting pressures outside of the United States to come here for treatment and to invest in properties, office buildings included. Now, healthcare providers of a particular cultural identity get the first generation residents. So there are a lot of Cantonese and Mandarin speakers who are coming to the West Coast of the United States, and some even in the East Coast. There are those who are coming to Florida, Georgia, Virginia, and New York to set up to set up businesses from Europe. And so we have a lot of foreign money and individuals who are moving here. And these are not people you'd see coming across the border on foot. They've come on planes and even on boats, and they're bringing a lot of influence with them. Cultural treatments, and I mean by this, treatments that are preferred by some people versus others, are going to attract immigrants regardless of their educational attainment. Now, I'm not going to go into what all of those are, but I'll simply say this. There are a lot of treatments, including cosmetic treatments, that people from Europe and Asia want, and the United States is a major provider. The National Health Service in Great Britain has not been doing that well. It's rather insolvent by some estimates. And so a lot of people who would normally say, well, we have the best insurance in the world, are rethinking that and thinking, I don't want to wait for a long period of time to get that treatment. So they come to North America with their cash. Practices with religious connections are the first in line with the new immigrants. Now, I'm saying Muslim, Sunni, and Sufi are a good example of people who are thinking, if I have a connection with a doctor who happens to be of my religion, they speak my language, they understand my culture, even though they may not be from my country or have a cultural identification, they are the first people who I'll want to go to. So those who are advertising to that population are by far the preferred practices to go to. And you'd be wise to consider the population numbers of people of different racial, ethnic, country of origin, and language groups that are within your area. If you haven't done it, you might want to think about it now, because for a lot of the upper class people with money and assets and education, they may actually kind of slip beneath the radar, and your practice may be well positioned to take advantage of them. That's why Dr. Demographics can help you. Now, immigration is really a regional issue. Yes, there are national patterns of people coming to the United States, but they don't go everywhere, and they tend to cluster geographically. There is a geographic imperative for people to set up in certain places, and I'll go through where those places are. But obviously in California, you have a large number of people from South and Central America. You got that. There are people in Florida and Georgia, Texas, who are immigrating because they feel comfortable with the culture and the place. But it is not limited just to a very small number of countries of origin nor language groups. That's why you've got to know through your research what might be in your area. Ports of entry are not all the same. Now, you probably know that right now, Seattle is one of the great ports of entry from Asia, not only for shipping containers. It is the largest, in fact, with Long Beach and Los Angeles, San Francisco, but particularly Southern California and in Washington State. Tremendous amounts going on there, as well as in the Northeast. But don't forget, the Southeast is a major place, a port of entry for people as well as supplies. So new businesses are likely to follow in those places. If you know who's coming to your areas, and remember, they do cluster geographically, these ports of entry may have a wonderful opportunity for the right practice, for the right doctor, for the right staff. Immigrants tend to settle near people from the same country and language group as their own, as I'll show you on a map in a minute. Now, the reasons for that, and it's often because people feel more comfortable with the local culture when people speak your language. But it also is true that they will sell things that people in that area might want, that otherwise people who are American natives may not know, even if they happen to speak the language or have an ancestral association. People from China want the latest Chinese imports. They don't want to have, just because someone was from China or one of the Asian countries, that supersedes their customs. Customs change over time, so recent immigrants are particularly sensitive to what they sell in these ports of entry. Immigrants want to be close to the people who are newly arrived. Specific industries tend to hire immigrants sooner than others. Now, for example, meat packers, farmers, ranchers, fishermen, those who do a lot of production in food tend to go to certain places and be hired almost immediately, actually, while they're on the boat or at the airport. They've got jobs ready for them. The identity or these major employers identify who the immigrant population is long before they get to the United States. So you've got to understand, they're pretty sharp, and I'll mention this again, in finding the people who they want to work with, who are anxious to work and are hard worker, have a good ethic. and immigrant populations tend to. First generation immigrants are stable. And I mean by this, they'll come to a location and they'll stay for a longer period of time than the second generation. First generation people will stay 5 to 10 years in the same house. People who are in the second generation will look at 3 years and want to move on. So there's faster turnover. That's what I mean by that. Now, language acquisition is a rising priority among immigrant populations. Right now, we've got a war between Ukraine and Russia. It's been going on for actually quite a long time. We've had that tension. But you see, the languages are well established, and people in the United States who speak that language and will hire the people are happy to get them. But always remember this. These people are aggressive in gaining English. It is the lingua franca for people in the common language. And they're anxious to learn it, and they're anxious to use it. If you happen to have staff that speaks a language, that is a huge advantage to you for the immigrant population. Huge. And don't assume that it's only the poor people who fall in that category. There are a lot of people who want to have you speak their language and their dialect. And so that's a big advantage to you if you hire the right staff. Now, as I mentioned, the United States is pretty sophisticated in processing immigrant populations and putting them to work. And that matters where they're located in the United States. So as I have referred to, I'll show you a map in a second of where these things are happening. But the process of getting people into the workforce, hiring them, giving them money to live, making loans to them, helping them get acclimated in the culture of the United States, in that language group or cultural base, that's a big deal. Now, regardless of country, they're working to get them jobs, to get them funding, meaning loans, and put them into an educational system, sometimes a private school or a workplace where they're comfortable. But again, don't fall into the trap of assuming they're all blue collar. They're not. Becoming American takes far less time than ever before. There was a time in which people could come to the United States from Italy, let's say, in the 1900s, and they would come here and they would struggle for their whole lives and never lose their accents. Well, those times are over. And there are lots and lots of people who in their countries right now are learning English aggressively so that they can come to the United States, become educated and well employed. It's not happening by accident. High population density is a sign of first generation immigrants. So if you see in the United States, the average household has between, about 2.4 people. Immigrant populations are often 4 and 5 people per household, but they don't register that in the Census Bureau. It is just a truth. So one of the things that you're looking for is a high density population. And when you find a particular group of a large language group or immigrant population where they come from a certain country of origin, they're going to live in dense housing. And that is a perfect situation for a healthcare practice that wants to build its patient base up quickly. By the way, immigrant populations are pretty good about paying their debts. Now, there are some imperatives that these immigrant populations have. The first thing is they want to buy property. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, I don't see them buying. Oh, yeah, they're out there and they're aggressively raising the prices on housing and business properties. And they're not coming without assets, many people. So the first thing they want to do is own property. The second thing is they want to learn English. I don't care what their age is. And by the way, they will often start with their children, 5, 6, 7 years old, who will be their ambassador to the people in the United States to help them get acclimated. So the children learn English first. Now, that's one more reason why the third imperative happens. They want to have a child. Expect a baby boom among the newly arrived population. The Probably the biggest exception to this is the Hispanics. Now, they will tend to have babies, it's true, but just remember they'll have more children than Native Americans. I mean, people who've been here a long time, but they aren't having numbers of children that they did in the early 20th century. But new arrivals want kids, and that's kind of gives them a hold on America, and they'll often point to the child and say, that's my American child right there. Trust me. Now, I want you to understand, most common country of origin in the United States is Mexico. Why? Because you can walk across the border. There is, you don't have to swim. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the only ones. Of course, in Florida, those people from Cuba and the Dominican Republic and some other countries are highly found there. Now, let's take India. India is one of the largest English-speaking countries in the world. Yes, there are other languages spoken, but India has been aggressive in learning English, and that's given a lot of people jobs. Because of that, India has taken over some jobs markets, and if you look at Ohio, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, there are significant numbers of people from India. Ethiopia and Bhutan and Somalia, believe it or not, work in meatpacking plants or food processing places, and they dominate it and have done very, very well. Somalia in Maine, because of the fisheries, has done remarkably well. The Dominican Republic has got a major toehold in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, by the way. Now, because of this, people in these states have welcomed aggressively their language family from their countries of origin. We'll look at this a little more nuanced in just a second. The most common country of birth for foreign-born residents, excluding Mexico, actually, it will vary state to state. Canada has a lot of people who are coming to Arizona and Utah. And by the way, Utah is a natural magnet for Canadians, especially in Calgary, Alberta. I don't know if you know this, but it happens to be a Mormon colony from way back when. So Idaho, also Montana, these places have a lot of Canadians because that's where they come from. Now, the Philippines surprises a lot of people, but the United States has welcomed people from the Philippines since World War II in very large numbers. India dominates some other places, including, I was surprised to find out, Colorado and Texas. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee have got a lot of them in the professional class. Now, they don't stand out, but Indians have been very successful in placing themselves in professional businesses and classes. So they've done great. I wish I had time to go into all of these. I'll just simply say, yeah, trust me, it matters. Now, the most common job held by new immigrants. I want you to look at this map for just a second because it surprises people. Look, housekeepers in Texas and Florida are very common. It's because they're often working for people who speak Spanish. Doesn't surprise you, but that's the job for new arrivals. And they are often working for other immigrant populations. In healthcare, something similar happens. So you'll notice, though, there is a professional job for the new arrivals, and this is the job market that they often place themselves in. So take just a second to take a look at it. You'll notice the agricultural workers, particularly in California. That should surprise no one because California's economy is primarily agricultural. The same thing in Portland and Washington, Idaho as well. Now, truck drivers in Montana surprise people because it's a transportation hub state. There's a lot of empty space and a lot of warehousing goes on in that state. So just to let you know, there's a reason why all of them work. By the way, it's interesting that in Arizona, grounds workers take care of your golf course is one reason why people come from Mexico and go to Arizona. It's just an easy job for them to get. Okay, let me move on. U.S. immigration, world losing hope. Now, here's what I mean. I can prove it. You can prove it. And that's because in almost all of these measurements, the United States is kicking butt. And a lot of people go, what? Well, in manufacturing, we're not. And that's true. In Asia, it's very inexpensive to hire people, and almost slave wages keep them working in their factories. That's true. However, when was the last time you heard about Chinese people winning a Nobel Prize? Or Europeans outside of Great Britain and maybe Germany? Birth rates have dropped significantly. The United States leads the way in the first world, and I'm talking about well-educated places, much higher birth rates than in Europe. Stable currency, the United States, in spite of all of its problems, still has got a currency that people trust. And there's a reason why the dollar is not going to be displaced anytime soon, in spite of what Glenn Beck says. There is a reason why our currency is popular. It's because it is stable and relatively backed up. We have a stable government. Our elections actually work. In spite of what may have gone on in the last presidential election, we really do have votes and people trust them, at least much more than in other places. If you go to other countries, that does not happen. We've got civil liberties still going on. Women are not raped in the street for the most part. We've got a law enforcement that generally works. The courts are still enforcing the law. And that doesn't happen in other parts in the world. It happens in the United States. Transportation accessibility is exceptional here. If you've ever traveled outside of the country, and by the way, I have, you will understand our interstate commerce much better as we look at interstate freeways, train, planes, transportation hubs. It's a big deal in North America. Our shipping right now is rather, well, getting bruised, but compared to other places, trust me, the United States is exceptional. Free enterprise is still popular here. You can start a business, and almost every immigrant I have ever talked to has said the same thing, that they want to own a money-making business. And private property can still be bought and sold. That is one reason why immigrants have been reported to be at the front of the line when it comes to buying properties, developed or not. Now, these things matter to you as a healthcare professional. You want to know where to put your practice? Well, look, in those places that are growing and have a strong economy, have good employment, great. But really what people are looking for are these factors, especially when they get off the boat or off the plane or out of the car or off the road. People want certain things and always have and always will. That's why the U.S. is still the last hope of the world's economies and the people's. If you want to get in touch with us at drdemographics.com, our number is 800-849-0499. Now, let me say this. Some of you need a speaker for your upcoming general membership meeting, your sales conference. You want to know about where to go. You want your organization to thrive. If you are in a state like Washington State, where within the state should you go? Well, that's what you hire me for, and Mike Green, and I'll be happy to send to you a speaker kit. But you need to send us an email at info@drdemographics.com or call us at 800-849-0499 or visit us at drdemographics.com. We'll send you a speaker kit, and if, by the way, you tell us proposed dates and topics, where you want to do it, we'll tell you the fee right up front. And by the way, I'm a cheap date. I'm just not that expensive, but it's a well-informed and I hope entertaining topic for you. So please let us know if you'd like us to speak. Dr. Demographics has been in the business of informing doctors about where to put practices, where to grow, where to move for almost 40 years. I'm thinking that's just amazing. Anyway, this is Scott McDonald, and thanks so much for watching.